Leafs free agency reports are really starting to pick up as multiple new rumors and reports have dropped, revealing some big information surrounding Brad Treliving's plans this offseason, specifically as it pertains to free agent signings that have huge implications going forward in the coming days and weeks. So to break down exactly what those are and discuss what this means for the future of this team. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button. 71% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed. You guys have been absolute beasts. So thank you guys for that. There's a lot to go over today. A new article has dropped, some new reports have dropped, and this time is not in the trade market. It is in the free agency market surrounding some free agents that the Leafs can get without giving up assets. And of course, they have a lot of players that they're going to need and a lot of roles they're going to have to fill with players leaving. John Tavares' future still up in the air, all these different things. A new article has dropped. Should the Leafs target in free agency 8 sneaky good fits? And there's one guy in particular we're going to dive into right now, and that is Andrew Mangiapane. Now, you can see this here as the Capitals navigate their offseason list. Reports have come out that Mangiapane will be hitting July 1st as a UFA, and he has also switched agents. And funny enough, within this article is Mangiapane as well. I'm going to be diving into that here. Darius, I want to get your thoughts on this. And of course, we'll be talking about a bunch of different players, but Mangiapane, a very interesting fit. Now, he would be a winger, and I feel like some people think he's older than he is. He's only 29 years old. This would be a very intriguing fit. Now, in the bottom 6, most likely, he's had some really good years with the Flames. Of course, last year was his first year outside of Calgary, playing with the Capitals. 28 points last year in 81 games. Not great. His worst year in his career, really, since his rookie season. But this would be a very good buy low option, especially, of course, given what we assume is going to be definitely cheaper than his previous cap hit.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with this player. And there's a couple players in this article, and credit to Jonas Siegel again, great article with a couple, interesting picks, that's for sure. And go check out the full article for some of the other names because we're only going to cover a few in this one. But Mangiapane, I really like him as a player, and I think that he was great in Calgary. Again, not the biggest player, but he can put up a couple points for you. And I think last year the reason he scored less is because he was playing a little bit of a different role. I feel like he was given more of an opportunity in Calgary, but Washington was a little bit of a better team. Obviously, they were fantastic last season. So played a little bit of a different role. First year away from, the team that he came up with. But I do think it's an interesting case that, he's only going to, or he is 29, right? Like you said, he's only going into his 30s. And he's probably going to take a step back in terms of salary, which I think is interesting because his last contract was pretty hefty, but I don't think there's any world where he gets something close to that again. Maybe there is because, the salary cap is going up, and I'm sure he would argue that, but I think he's going to be making less. So it's a very interesting option because I think the Leafs are trying to reconfigure, their entire bottom 6 at this point. And I think they're still looking for top 6 talent, like a little bit of it, maybe a player or two, probably just one at this point, but I think this is an interesting case for maybe a third line player that can really chip in for some serious point production during the regular season and maybe the playoffs. So I think it's an interesting idea. There's another player, that we're going to bring up that I really, really like, but never really hated Mangiapane. I think he's a great player. He could help the Leafs. And again, I think it's going to come at a dollar amount that could actually make sense with the cap rising.
You look there, his last contract was 3 years, 17.4 million. And of course, he has scored 30 plus goals throughout his career one time back in 2021, 2022. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on him. Yeah, good depth piece. You're buying low on a guy who isn't necessarily guaranteed to get worse and get like a ton older. Obviously, he's going to get older. Everyone does. But as it pertains to his game, he's still in the, in theory, in the prime of his career. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts with whatever team he does join following leaving the Calgary Flames. Let's dive into now an interesting player. And this one is one that we haven't touched on this channel. And this is a defenseman. Now, of course, we've been talking a lot about on the channel about, the Leafs defense core is pretty much surefire here. But Darius, I want to hear your thoughts on him. He is a 27-year-old. You can see in the second paragraph, they're right-handed shot defenseman, drafted and developed by the Lightning. And this would be a bit of a depth piece. Would this make sense potentially if they're looking at trading Morgan Riley or somebody like that? It's also possible, not to replace Morgan Riley, but to obviously have another defenseman in there. Yep. I think he could actually fit very, very well, and he has the same name as me, so I'm going to go ahead and want him for that reason. But defensemen aren't talked about a lot, and I think Nick here would be pretty good.
This is an interesting one with Nick Perbix, and I think that, coming up through the Tampa Bay system, like he was kind of a no-name player. Not too many people knew about him, at least, outside of the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. But as Leaf fans remember, a couple of years ago, he came in to play with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he like immediately was on their first pairing, and he was playing with Victor Hedman, which was just absurd. And he didn't really look out of place, right? Especially in the series. So he looked pretty good at that point. He's been a regular at this point the whole way. I don't know if they're going to be able to retain him. I don't think his salary is going to be anything crazy either. Maybe 3 million, like maybe. And I think that he's a very good, serviceable, definitely NHL defenseman and could possibly play on like a second pairing. He's a right shot defenseman, which I know the Leafs have all of a sudden a plethora of those, which is crazy to think over the last couple of years, what we've been talking about. But, maybe a third pairing guy. I think it could make a lot of sense. And again, like I am a huge fan of this player. I think this, out of the all the guys we're mentioning in this video, this would be really good. This would make a lot of sense. You're getting a little bit younger on the blue line as well. And a lot of people forget, injuries happen. You don't know what's going to happen with Benoit. I love Simone Benoit. We've been on the Benoit train for a long time. Maybe OAL moves over to the left side on that third pairing. Then you have Perbix over on the right. That could be a good little, pairing as well. So pretty interesting. I think that it's someone that they should definitely look at. Probably not like a first priority or anything like that, but this is a guy I'm a really big fan of. He's really taken advantage of the opportunities he's been given, which is something I can't say for a lot of Leaf
Yeah.
players throughout the organization. So I really, really like this player and the fact that he rises to the occasion. And again, he was playing first pairing minutes with Victor Hedman at some point.
Would also elevate the offensive creation for this Toronto Maple Leafs
That is a
defensive
big,
blue line,
yeah.
which is something they lack a lot of. I mean, OEL helped, of course, a little bit, and having some upside there. You'll be the youngest defenseman, I believe, at least out of the main guys. So it's going to be interesting
Mhm.
to see what happens with Nick Perbix. And one other one before we wrap up as well is, of course, we're covering Andrew Mangiapane. Anthony Beauvillier. Now, this one is one that I expect Leafs to have interest in. Again, I think their number one priority is going to be someone like Andrew Mangiapane. Like that's probably near the top, a winger, of course. But they also can also go for Anthony Beauvillier, who's also a winger, but might be a bit less likely. But regardless, they need more malleable forwards like Beauvillier with a variety of tools in their toolbox, and he is an interesting one. Does he fit the Craig Berube play style physically? Maybe not necessarily in the sense of he's 5'11", but and obviously, looking at his stats last year, and I'm very curious there to see if you think he fits the Craig Berube mold, like I just mentioned. He's coming off of a interesting year. Now, he's hopped between a lot of teams. Last year, between the Penguins and the Capitals, he had, a decent year, right? A solid year overall. He would probably be the cheapest out of the bunch we've talked about. Maybe you can make a case depending on how much and what team he's on. He's been with a few different teams. But between those teams, you can look back to 2022, 2023. He played with the Islanders and the Canucks. He had a decent year there. Chicago Blackhawks as well in that year. Like he's played for a lot of teams. I think he would be a very decent fit. He isn't big again. He's 5'11", but he's also a very solid playoff performer. 18 goals in 65 games, which is better than some of the Leafs that get paid $10 million. So it's I think that's where he would shine. Top 9 winger is his fit. I think a lot of that depends on what team he goes to, but who else the Leafs get. Like he's not going to be top 6 if they have a bunch of guys back here and they bring some guys back. But there is a world where he is, a guy that really contributes, almost like, just a lot of the under the radar players that have happened around the league, not necessarily with the Leafs, even like Pacioretty to a degree, very different players, but that chip in ways that you really notice because of the lack of toughness that the rest of the Leafs tend to have, specifically, Mitch Marner and guys like that in the playoffs.
Yeah, and his fit there, at least his top 9, I think that makes some sense. Although I don't think he's a top 6 forward on the Leafs. Like it really depends, like you said, like what team he's on. Like he's a top 6 forward on the Pittsburgh Penguins, but probably not on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if he is, something catastrophic has probably happened. But heading forward into next year, I think it's interesting because again, free agent probably won't cost that much. We'll get into some projections in a second, but does he fit the Craig Berube mold and style of play? Maybe not. And he's not the biggest guy, but maybe he does because he performs in these playoff moments, right? Like these moments that you need him to. Scored a big goal, or a couple of big moments for the Washington Capitals. We know that he's had big moments in the past for the New York Islanders when they were kind of on their runs against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is not a guy that's doing these things in like 2015 or 2016, like a long time ago at this point, which is crazy to think. But this is a guy that's doing it in recent memory in Stanley Cup, playoff moments, recently. So I do like that. again, depth scoring during the regular season, could possibly play on a third line. Take your pick between what player you'd rather have. I think they bring different things to the table in Beauvillier and Mangiapane. So, you could take your pick, whatever you like. Probably don't sign both, but then you got to go out and find, some top six talent as well. But again, probably not going to cost you that much against the cap. You have a lot of cap to kind of work with Mitch Marner going out the door, and we don't know what's happening with John Tavares, but you're still saving money in the grand scheme of things because obviously Tavares is just not going to make what he was making before. So it's an interesting idea. They need to start thinking about these things and start thinking about the philosophy and how the bottom six plays, because the way it's been playing for the last little while is not right. You're not going to win that way. Calle Yarncroke's probably got to go as well. He doesn't do much besides just doing cardio out there in playoff games. So, you got to replace him with guys like maybe a Beauvillier who can chip in these moments. And those playoff stats are not amazing. Like, he's not a point a game player, but very few players are in the playoffs, right? Only the elite of the elite are. So, he could be a very good option. And again, the Leafs have to completely rethink the bottom of their lineup and what it looks like heading into next season.
Yeah, and let's look into some of the quickly before I have the contract projections. If you're debating between them, I'd prefer, of course, Mangiapane, just a bit more goal scoring. But last year, 25 points, 81 games. He's projected at about a $2.3 million cap hit. Whereas you're looking at some of the other guys like Mangiapane, basically the same amount. So it's a coin toss who you'd prefer. But let us know down below in the comments section who you would prefer. And look over there to the right, see some Max Domi comparisons for the contract. Although his was 4 years, $3.7 million. I don't know if the Leafs would have done that now in hindsight, but that'll wrap it up. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on a lot of these guys. A few different players we've been discussing, and that's going to be interesting. The Leafs are going to do something, I think, unexpected here soon, and we'll keep you up to date all the way through. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.